Okay, well, John's an idiot, and he's still trying to figure out why. Uh, it's standard, it's like standard John. Yeah, I know, Brandon. I know it's 8:12. 8:12 Central Time. Yeah. So opening kickoff is John's an idiot. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code for those of you who are hanging out with us this morning. And there you go. So that's the QR code. Go to our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You hit the QR code there. And don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 as you make your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest in youth games, youth initiatives from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Okay. To explain, before Tyler joins us here in a couple of minutes. So the current thing here with our software with StreamYard is you have a reusable studio setting. It's new, and you can use the same settings, the same login, all the same things. So what I tried to do was go in through the same window, go in through the same code, and all these kinds of things, and follow the same path, and it ended up just recording instead of going live. It was a live recording, but it was a recording. It wasn't going out. And so I'm looking on Twitch and I'm trying to see what's going on. And it's not processing there. And it's like the all the notifications in the upper right-hand corner are different. And so and I know this will shock all of you, but I know that me having issues with technology, I know is a shock. Yeah. Morning, Michael from Hilton Head. Morning, Alex. So basically, opening kickoff is John's an idiot. And he was trying to figure out in real time why he was an idiot. And I just decided to cut my losses and create a new room instead of go through the reusable studio, because all it was doing was recording and not sending out anything live. So that was what was going on this morning. Opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com, is John's a moron. Not that that's anything new, mind you, but just figured I would let you in on how the sausage is made. And apparently the sausage is not made very well when it comes to me and technology. So, yeah. So John's a moron. What else is new? Yeah. So I'm just look. It's 9:15. I pretty much blew up opening kickoff by being a moron. So, all right. So there's your QR code once again. Soccer Down Here 15 when you check out from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Then they in turn take 10%, reinvest it into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Okay. So there you go. So Tyler is coming in now. And I know that this is a shock to you, but John's an idiot.
You're not an idiot.
No, I'm an idiot. Because it's like trying to figure out. So, I mean, you guys use the same thing, right? You guys use StreamYard too?
Yeah.
Okay. So the whole reusable studio thing
Okay. Yep.
was what I was trying to get into this morning. I was trying to get into the reusable studio space. And it was somehow John hitting the wrong buttons and only recording something. It was a live recording, mind you, but it was just a recording. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, where the hell is this going and why is it not showing up on the screen?
Did you like dive into your whole like intro and everything, or were you
Oh,
just like?
absolutely. I was gone, man. It's like I was off and running, and it's just like I see live and I'm like recording and I'm looking off because I have multiple monitors going on. And I look off to my left, and that's basically return. And I look and I just see the thing from yesterday, and I keep hitting refresh. It's just like refresh, 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 and it's still yesterday's show. And I'm like, what the blank is going on here? So I cut my losses basically after 8 minutes of going through the intro and everything at 9:06. And it's like, yep, okay, I've got to figure the show out and all these other kinds of things. And it's just like, oh, screw it. And so that's why you ended up getting the secondary email that's like, don't go into that room, go into this room.
I figured there was something to that. It was a little suspicious.
No, it's a lot suspicious because John's a moron. And God bless you, Alex. Alex is like, please do not talk about my friend John like that, John. It's like having separate conversations. John, you're an idiot. Why do you think so? Well, I'll tell you. We'll get into this conversation here as the show goes on. John's an idiot. Okay, I'll second that. Literally one of those kinds of things.
8 minutes.
8, yeah.
That's awesome.
Literally, I was gone, man. And I'm just like, well, screw it. I'm cutting my losses. And yeah. So, yeah, Brandon, Brandon's like 8-12, dude. I'm like, yeah, I know. Sadly, I'm all too painfully aware that John's an idiot. What's the mug this morning, by the way?
It is the Mandalorian.
Okay.
Bringing him and Grogu / Baby Yoda back.
Baby Yoda.
Yeah. Breakfast blend coffee, which is
Okay.
very fresh and is nice.
Yes. Yeah. See, you coffee folks, I just can't get into that. Now that you've had, yes. Now that you've had a couple days with your additional programming, now that you're going all 24/7, 365 with everything going on at Scarves and Spikes, what was the initial reaction after the win and the chaos that was attached to it for the penultimate match of the year? And so, of course, yeah, you're getting right to the last match of the year. So what happens? International window. That's great program.
That's how it always goes.
Yeah. So
How it always goes.
right up there to the edge of the cliff. And then, oh, by the way, it's like, Wile E. Coyote's chasing the Roadrunner. You get to the edge of the cliff, and it's that moment where he misses and Wile E. Coyote's just hanging out in midair. That's where we are right now with the MLS season. We are Wile E. Coyote missing the Roadrunner, and we're just kind of hanging out trying to.
Or where he paints the tunnel, and you're like, oh man, this is smooth sailing. I just got to go through this tunnel, and you run right into the mountain.
Yes,
that's what this international break feels like.
Yeah, so that's where we are. What was the initial feedback? I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit here on the network, but I wanted to get your perspective with what's been going on from the Scarves in. What's up?
Relief. I think this match, interestingly enough, kind of proves how, as fans, we all kind of have short-term memory, because
what? What?
Winning cures all, right? And it's not lost on anybody. Everybody knows, like, you put yourself in this position. It's tough now. You did the job, and you got to still go do the job in a couple of weeks, and things have to go your way. But there's a little bit of belief, a little bit of relief, a little bit of hope, and I think a lot of, well, I'm not convinced until it actually happens, and that's valid, right? Like, that's where you've put yourself as a team. You could have been into the playoffs by now, and you just couldn't win those games at home that you really needed over the past few weeks. And so I think everybody kind of went into this Red Bulls game almost looking at it as like a freebie, in the sense that, like, if it goes good, yay. If it doesn't, well, then there's the season, and we'll see you next year, kind of thing. And they got at least another week, at least the game on decision day is a real decision day game. It's a game of consequence now. So that ups the stakes a little bit. And now it's going to be really curious to kind of see, they brought the fight to home. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but they did it. And then now you got to go see if they can do it on the road.
Well, and I mean, the way that if Red Bulls have it their way anyway, they're going to turn this into a mucker, a grinder, whatever. If you want to use the horse racing term, it's a mucker. If you want to use a college football term, it's a grinder. Yeah. They're gonna slow things down. They're gonna drive you crazy. They're gonna try to push and goad you. That's just like most of the teams in the Northeastern United States. I'm having a revelation.
It's crazy.
So I mean, it's they want to sit there and frustrate the ever-loving ish out of you, force you into mistakes. They want to play like the ball has cooties. We don't want it. Y'all do all the work. And there were times, once again, where Atlanta United flipped the script like we've seen in years past. It's like, we're just going to bomb it long, and y'all got to do the heavy lifting for a change. And you could tell that Red Bulls were uncomfortable with it. Atlanta United saw some things down the attacking left-hand side where in the first 45 minutes, you had half of the attacks down the attacking left, trying to work that right-hand side with the absences that were there and the advantages you thought you could take. I mean, it was Yeah, you got Edwin, and it's like, okay, bruh, go run. It's just go for it and grind them into the turf, and you got to see things from a couple of different dudes where they were given a chance to. All right, you got one last chance at home to show me what's going on, and with Edmund and Ronald and a couple of others, you got to see what they can bring to the table, at least in a short-term situation.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I kind of really, really talked about a lot in the pre-match show was tactically, like on here last week, we talked about how really the excuse me, the players just need to go and do the job. They just need to go and show some fight, show some passion, show whatever, show they want to be here. And I think they came out and did that. I think, they were effective. They had a simple game plan and they stuck to it. And that simple game plan was don't allow the Red Bulls a moment to get comfortable, because if you do, all they're going to do is press you and they're going to make it very difficult, and they're going to honestly just be a pain. That's what they do. And yeah, having Edwin and Saba, mostly Edwin, making those just obnoxious wind sprints down the left side, knowing good and well he might not get the ball. It was effective, right? It had the back line giving some second thoughts to straying too far away. And when they did, Edwin was there, and to his credit, he did pretty well. I mean, he took a minute to settle into some of his crosses, right? Like they were, those first few were a little overcooked, but overall, I mean, he put in a shift and he made them very uncomfortable back there. So, I mean, you did what you had to do. You got lucky at the end, right? Like you had some calls go your way, which we don't see happen with Atlanta very often.
Yeah.
But I'll take the luck.
Yeah. Take it and run,
take it
brother.
and get it. Yeah. And then move on the next week. Hope you get some more luck.
Mm-hmm. And look, I know that, and this is something that we've talked about this season as well, where you had and we had Bart on Monday to talk about the Isla PK opportunity, where he's trying to hook the receiver as the defensive back. He's trying to hook the receiver going by, and it's just like a little hand fighting here, a little grab. Okay, yeah, 15. But then the incident outside the box that turns into this coffee clatch, and literally it's like this discussion with Ismir Pekmic, who, by the way, needs a better whistle. He needs to go to the whistle manufacturing companies and go, I need something that projects a little more. That's a separate thing we'll get to in a second. But the contact just outside the box that ends up in the set piece, and literally you had Emil Forsberg, you had whichever Nealis brother was out there. I think it was Dylan.
I think it was Dylan, yeah.
So you had Dylan Nealis and Emil Forsberg and Carlos Coronel kind of charging Ismir Pekmic outside the 18, and wagging their fingers and woofing and getting in folks' faces, and then you end up with a push. How Dylan Nealis survived, without getting a second yellow / red in the first place, I don't know. But the idea that Stian Gregerson, after getting knocked over, basically stood up and he's in Nealis's grill, and he's just like, yeah, okay, is that all you got, Slick? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you wish you had seen a lot more and a lot earlier in the year, but you were glad that you got to see it in that situation. But there was a key moment if Atlanta United wanted to continue their season.
Yeah, I was up in the press box and I was like, let's go. Let's go. I've been waiting for this. Like, and parts of all, I see what you're saying. Like, passion, should they also show energy? I mean, yeah, show it all. Do whatever you got to bring.
Yeah.
Like, bring something to the table. And because you haven't seen it, right? I mean, even your head coach is saying, I don't really see it. And that should be embarrassing. And then, yeah, you come out to this match against Red Bulls, and that moment for me showed a lot, because I mean, Stian might have been the one that went in and said, no, we're not going to be doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
But you got Slish involved, you got Marinchuk involved, you got Ronald Hernandez, we know is going to jump in there too. He just hasn't had much of a chance.
Yes.
But he jumps in. I mean, everybody, kind of was backing up their guy, and it felt like a true Atlanta Red Bulls match. It felt like a proper rivalry. We might not look at that, and a lot of people outside the Atlanta circles think, well, that's not really a rivalry. This is a rivalry. It has been since 2018. So I don't know. I liked what I saw. I loved Steon going in like that. I also loved his quote in the locker room at the end. That was hilarious.
But the
But
fat lady hadn't sung yet.
that was amazing. I was not expecting that to come out of him. But yeah, I liked it. You showed some life, showed some passion, and just some pride in where you're playing at.
Well, and I mean, if there are those that might be new to this particular matchup that may not know that this is a rivalry, all I would do in this situation for those who are watching as opposed to listening, is I would do this. That this is all I would do. I would hold both of my hands up about the width of a trophy, and just jam it in somebody's face.
Hey,
That's
Tito did it.
the Tito Kamar Lawrence back and forth. That to me was the first reason that this is a rivalry, even if you are as detached as you are. And then the playoff game up at Red Bulls, where you're treating the ball like it's got cooties, and you're sending it long and having them do all the work. You're flipping your script on Red Bulls, as Tata did at the time. But no, this is a rivalry, fam, because that's all I'm doing. It's like I'm sticking my hands apart with the trophy, and then with Kamar Lawrence loses his damn mind and pushes Tito over, and you end up seeing everybody jumping in the pile. You saw that again in this current iteration. It just so happened it was not in a game that was in a playoff, but it was a game that could lean toward a playoff. And so, no, this is a rivalry. I think in all aspects, this is a rivalry. It's just that I think sometimes we need to be reminded about these kinds of things.
Yeah, and I'm sure Atlanta went into it basically looking at it as a playoff match, because it kind of was. I mean, right? Like, you had to win.
Mm-hmm.
The draw scenario was very mathematically improbable. That was going to be very tough. And so, yeah, you had to go into it with the mindset that this is just really the beginning of your playoffs. And I'm sure that was probably some of the message from Rob going into it. And so, yeah, I mean, who that rubbed off on? Well, clearly Steon, maybe
Yes.
Slitch and a few others.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, the team came together, and I like to see the heightened emotions at times. I mean, you can't be a team like that all the time, right? Like, you can't be a team that is just constantly living up here. That's unsustainable, and then people don't take you seriously. It's like a bit like Crying Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
But you were long overdue for some moments like that, and I'll take it all day.
Yeah. Wiley says, I don't know, man. Feels like it might be too little too late. If that's the case, then that's the case. But I would much rather see a club, and I don't care who it is. It could be your favorite college football team, could be your favorite baseball team, since we're in the postseason there now too. Could be, your favorite team in your favorite league outside of what we're discussing. But at the same time, I'd like to see that fight in a situation where it's required and not just requested. And there's a difference. It's like, yeah, I'd like for you guys to kind of engage. No, this is a situation where you need to engage. I want to see that, because as we continue to mention, folks are playing for jobs, whether it's here, whether it's someplace else. You're fighting for a job, and folks are going to see your last actions out there on the pitch whenever that is. And so, it's like huddle tape that's unedited. Huddle, traditionally, it's like, yeah, you got the greatest hits package, and here's what it is, and here I am in like 2.5 minutes. No, this is unedited huddle tape, and this stuff isn't going to lie. Where if you've got a teammate that gets pushed over, how do you respond?
Yep.
And everybody jumps into a pile and isn't going to take any ish from anybody. That's, I think, the kind of fight that you want to see. And like I said, yes, I know that you want to see that all season long, but with your back up against a wall, with it being a playoff play-in game, basically to keep your playoff hopes alive, however slim they may be, you're seeing that kind of jump in and that kind of engagement. And I know that a lot of folks are sitting there going, well, what took you so long? But you got to see it now, and you have that opportunity. I know it's slight, I know it's slim, and you're going up against the purple team and all these kinds of things. And Oscar Pereja, I'm sure, and everybody down there would love to sit there and bump Atlanta United out of the playoffs here in 2024. But at least you've given yourself that shot. And you've given yourself that shot with the fight that was there, basically, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and to Wiley's point, like, it might be too little too late.
Mm-hmm.
it might be that you go down to Orlando and win the game and still don't get into the playoffs. And I mean, that would still be better than getting knocked out by Orlando, but whatever. That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
It might be too little too late, and it is what it is. But going back to what I said last week, and like Parzival said, the passion, more energy, more passion. Like that, but that's the thing. Like at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted out of these last two games. Show me who wants to really be here and stay for next year. Because had you kept coming out in these matches the same way you did, I'm not arguing anybody's talent. I'm not arguing anybody's like commitment to the game, but it does feel like there is a lack of, like, there's a disconnect somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't show that same thing on Saturday. They showed what they needed to show. And I think some of the players stood out as guys that, all right, you've got it in you. I wish you'd been showing it before this, but you got it in you. Now do what you got to do for the rest of the season, and then come back next season and let's see that all season long.
Yeah, it's like you find you plugged it into the wall, and it's like, oh, this works.
It does work. I just had to twist the cord a little bit.
It's like, wait a minute. Oh, so this is the batteries were dead. Wait a minute. So what happens if I plug it in the wall? Oh, okay. This is where we are right now, and the math that is associated. And yes, it's an ish load of math, and you know how we are with math here, but it's one of those where yes, you're in, and Mike had done all of the math, and literally the way things go, you could end up legitimately, you could end up, if things fall your way a certain way, you literally could end up as the 8 with a win. And if you think about it, that's wild to consider that you could end up as the 8 if you win. And like I said, I know ifs and buts and candies and nuts and wait all Merry Christmas. I get that. But if you win and Philly doesn't win at Cincinnati, DC loses with Charlotte, Montreal loses with NYC, all somewhat plausible because folks are chasing after things. So Atlanta wins. Philly doesn't do anything against Cincinnati. And let me grab this. Let me just grab from a standings perspective, and we can kind of stare at things here. So Cincinnati, they're locked in place. They're the 3. So could they be motivated to what? Who knows? Maybe they just want to sit there and, you know, have a kickabout and get in and get out in 90 minutes. Who knows? But Cincinnati's locked into the 3. They can't touch nothing. So the matchup against Philly means a lot more to Philly because Philly's got a win that would get them to 10 wins. That would get them to tiebreakers and all that kind of yah. So Philly's at a +8. They would be part of the better goal difference group as things roll forward. DC losing against Charlotte. DC is in right now. Charlotte needs to play because Charlotte could be literally, they could be the 5, they could be the 6, they could be the 7. So Charlotte will be engaged. So DC could, you know, sit there and they'd have to chase that one. Montreal and NYC. NYC, once again, they've got to chase because if they win, Orlando loses, they could be the 4. They could end up with home field in round number 1. They could be anywhere from, say, 7 if things fall, but they would have, win. They would have goal difference issues, and they would have more wins and all these tiebreakers and things. So NYC has to pay attention. Charlotte's got to pay attention. DC's got to pay attention. Philly's paying attention. Since he does not, Atlanta and Orlando. And so I think at the very least, you could have 7 of the 8 teams that are in Mike's number 8 scenario, the 8 scenario, having to actually physically do some heavy lifting on decision day. You get the 9, you're in. If you win, and 2 things follow. Philly doesn't win, and or a DC loss, and or a Montreal loss. So yes, there's math, and I know. But still, you're going to have teams that, short of Cincy, you're all going to have a decision day at 6 o'clock. Well, by the way, where are you going to be at 6 o'clock on decision day next week when we have you thought this far ahead yet? You guys going to be at the hotel? What are you doing?
I will actually be in the press box in Orlando.
Oh,
yeah, I will be there.
Well,
yeah, but barring anything weird with the hurricane, and prayers to everybody that's about to get hit by that thing. But
yes.
I'll be there. We actually, we have family in Orlando, so we go down there a handful of times a year, and kind of coincided this one with this game,
Yeah.
and it'll actually be right when we show up. So I'm going to be getting out of the car, going to entering Co Stadium or whatever it's called now.
Yes,
So
Inter and Co.
and our guys, they'll be doing a watch along over on the Patreon. So
Okay. So yeah, so y'all's gonna be all over the place for that one.
yeah,
So that's gonna be solid. When it comes to anything else that happened with Atlanta and Red Bulls, I know that we see each other in the post match and we come out with our own thoughts after you left the locker room and the discussion with Rob and all of those kinds of things. What else stuck in your brain going through the locker room after that match and seeing what else was going on mentally in that locker room after coming out the other side with a win that you needed to have?
I think everybody I talked to, they all kind of had the same mentality where it really hurt to give up those goals. We understand we got lucky with the 2 offside calls, but we're going to take the 3 points and run.
Mhm.
We have to be happy about the 3 points. We have to let that, build some momentum. And then one of the questions I asked, anytime I asked a question, one was to Ronald Hernandez, but how do you keep this momentum, right? Because it does seem, I know we joke around about it, but it seems like Atlanta has this really unfortunate circumstance of always like getting a little bit of momentum right before an international break.
Yeah.
And Rob even brought it up in the press conference, like it happened with Charlotte. You played a good game against Charlotte, and then all of a sudden break, and you come back and you look like a team that's never played together before. So I asked, everybody, like, how do you keep this kind of rolling? And Ronald said, we have to keep kind of like the vibe that we have right now, and we're going to have rest days, but even on the rest days that we have between now and Orlando, we have to continue to train as if we're coming off of this game and keep this momentum high. And I mean, I don't know that there's a better answer because I know nobody really has a true answer for that, but I think that's about the best you're going to get. They have to try to capture that feeling of winning in a bottle and go carry it through to the training ground and then carry it down to Orlando. And I think that was kind of everybody's vibe. Like Stian Gregerson with his, it ain't over till the fat lady sings comment. He was happy, but he fully admitted that like we made mistakes and we were kind of lucky to come out with a win, but we won and it kept us alive. And now we have to go and do it all again. And so, I think if they can come out with kind of the same mindset that they did in this one and just tidy up some of the little mistakes, then they have a chance in Orlando. It's not going to be easy, but I think you're much better off coming out of this match than you have been in probably 2 months.
Yeah. And I mean, literally, all you want is a chance. So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance.
So that's all you want. And I know that we'll have plenty of time to do other postmortems and things like that whenever the season ends as we go. When you look at the season in general, and I guess we can open up the Atlanta United yearbook if you want. The yearbook, you're passing you're getting signatures from everybody. Everybody's putting their messages down and these kinds of things. If we were to talk about senior superlatives, if we did those kinds of things in the Atlanta United yearbook here for 2024, who would be homecoming king? Who would be these kinds of things? Who would be biggest surprise for you when it comes to these kinds of awards as we pass the yearbook around here in 2024 with a match to go? Biggest surprise for you would be whom?
Biggest surprise, I think, would probably be.
I have a name, but I'll go ahead.
I have 2.
Okay.
Because going back to the beginning of the season,
Yeah.
Derek Williams, I just wasn't sure how that battle was going to play out. Because talking with like some of our Galaxy fans and friends and the time that he spent and just kind of around the league, and I just wasn't sure if Atlanta was getting another just okay, serviceable center back, and he locked himself in. I mean, of course, he's had mistakes like clearing balls when you really needed to, not doing it. Like, there's been some things, but he really impressed me with kind of the way he worked together with Stian Gregerson, the kind of partnership that they developed, his desire to just leave it all out on the field. That really impressed me. And then my other one, and it may be a byproduct of just where the team was at in the summer transfer window, but I love Pedro Amador. That dude is a freaking warrior, and I've loved what I've seen out of him every match. He's come out, he's laid his body on the line. He is really, really good at what he does. Like, his 1v1 defending has been really, really awesome. And yeah, both of them have impressed me. Biggest surprises for me. And I'll throw in, just as a I don't want to say third place. That's not the right. What am I looking for here?
As another individual.
Yeah, I'll just say Jay Fortune.
Okay.
Just and I only didn't say that as one of the original two because it's not that it's a surprise as much as it is him just consistently proving kind of what we already knew. And sometimes you get up to this level and you kind of have a drop off. And I think Jay has done really well for the positions that he's been put in.
I had Brad in my head.
That's a good shout too. That's a very good shout. Was not expecting him to come back and look like 30-year-old Brad as opposed to 40-year-old Brad. I totally agree. We've given him enough, plaudits and everything all season. The moment that goal went in that was offside, I was like, no, Brad, not like this, man. You've done so good this season. And then you got caught in like a weird position. You came out way too far. You got beat. It's a mental mistake. And then it gets called back offside. And I was like, oh, thank God for Brad. I'm so glad he didn't, end the season on such a crappy note, because he's had such a good one, and a good one that he probably had no business having.
And I know that the way that I look at it is that you're there with someone who is another year past an injury. And I know that a lot of folks will sit there and go, Achilles injury, this, and this, and they'll talk about it. But I think that the further away you get from an injury, I think that the more confident you become, the more at ease you are with everything in your situation and where you are. And, we always mention how keepers age differently, where Brad is now a man. Brad is now 40. Just ask Mike Gundy about that. And so you have Brad a year further along, and and our friends at Spot Track, where one of the sources that I use when it comes to salaries and contracts and things like that, there is a club option for next year. And it will be one of the intriguing decisions that the front office, in whatever form it is going to make when it comes to Brad Gazan. Is that last year in that contract that is the club option, considering what we've seen from Brad this year, coming off of last year, being that next year further on down the line, away from all the injuries, away from the knee injury, which still I'm waiting for a repercussion from the league from. I guess I'm glad that I didn't hold my breath on that one, and the Achilles injury as well. So you're further down the road from these things, and we've seen him come out the other side as someone who has really shown this year, shined and shown and shined.
We'll take it both.
Yeah, both. So Brad was the one that I had in mind, in addition to the ones that you had on the table.
Yeah, and if it weren't for Brad, we wouldn't even be having a conversation about the playoffs at this point, because Brad has, in fact, single-handedly saved this team some points a handful of times this year. And so, it's amazing what was it, 2 months really of just not playing soccer allowed him to do. Like, he came back from the Achilles very quickly, and he's doing okay. But I think even in the beginning of the season last year, you could tell like he just had lost a little bit of a step. And then New York happens, and that was the most frustrating thing to watch. And the fact that he played on his knee after that for 45 minutes is just a testament to who Brad is. He's stubborn. He's going to keep playing. And then the fact that he came back like 8 weeks later after that, or was it even 8?
I don't
It's
think
just another
yeah,
testament
yeah.
to how stubborn he is.
Mhm.
But you could tell, like, he was slow. So you go through the whole season, and then you get to this past off season. He comes back, and he's been admittedly one of the best keepers in the league, and that's not being biased. That's just looking at numbers. And um, I mean, he's stopped you some penalties multiple times, right? He's made some absolute standout saves. Like he's been solid, and so yeah, it's going to be a really tough decision to just walk away from a guy that's given you as much as he has. Now, I mean, forget the rest of his time here.
Yeah.
Like, we all know what he's done, but you have to look at his most recent performances. And in 2024, he's been one of the best players on the team.
When I think about, and this is one of the things, when and I don't know when keepers are comfortable discussing these kinds of things. When Nick Raimondo retired, he finally gave the interview as to how he addresses penalty kick situations. Nick Raimondo was one of the is and forever will be. I feel like Bret Hart. He's the Bret Hart of penalty kick saves.
Yep.
When it comes to keepers. When he retired, he gave this big interview breaking down how he would go about penalty kick situations and save situations because of his save percentage. I would love this in a perfect world. Here's what I would love. If I could get Brad, Tim Melia, and Nick Raimondo to sit at a table, fly them all in, get them to a restaurant, maybe in Marietta or something, have flying to Dobbins, get explicit permission to have Melia and Raimondo flying to Dobbins. They just get off at Dobbins, you get the motorcade. They go to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, or they go to a restaurant there in Marietta, have them sit down, break bread, where we get to ask them about their approaches when it comes to penalty kick situations and how they analyze things and what do they see other than the water bottle and maybe what's on the glove that might be, might be a little sweaty and bleed through because you couldn't read it. But I'd love to know. And like I said, until Brad retires, we may not know these answers, but how you approach a penalty kick situation. Are you looking? I've always thought that if you were a keeper, you looked at the hips of the shooter. You're looking there. You're looking at placement of the plant foot, those kinds of things, and trying to process all that information. But I would love to have that kind of a sit down with Brad as to what he's looking at. Maybe go over video in a film room or something to see how he's processing this to have the success that he's having in these situations.
It's funny because, I think when you really sit down and look at a keeper that is really good at saves, you have to attribute some of it and a significant sum to luck, because it really does come down to, first of all, you just got to pick the right direction. And,
yes,
some are easier than others, right? Like when the penalty taker comes up and tries to, add a stutter step to it, and then you're patient enough to wait and you can kind of see which way they're going. That's different than a guy that runs up and, it's kind of harder to look at his hips because you can open your hips up at the last second and send it the other way. But there's so many little bits of information you have to take in a split second, literally. And then hope you pick the right direction. But then it's about, stretching out. It's about, in a regular penalty situation, it's about the rebound. Like, there's so many little things that you have to worry about. And yeah, Brad's one of those people that he's I don't think he's ever, until the day absolutely that he is hanging up the gloves, he's ever going to sit and be like, well, this is what I did every time. And he might give the answer of, I just picked the side and I dove.
Yeah.
Got lucky, but it feels like he's, I don't want to say found the key and unlocked it, because he's missed. I mean, it happens, but he's been pretty good at what he's been doing with penalties over his career. And so it would be a very interesting question among many to ask when he does retire.
It's like the blackjack sequence in The Hangover, where you see Zach Galifianakis and you see all of the math problems going on in front of his face. you wonder if that's what goalkeepers are looking at. Because I mean, Garth Lagerwey still holds the record, I think, for save percentage in the run-up PK in MLS history.
Yep.
And probably one of the best associated haircuts and hairstyles that goes with that particular save percentage. But you always want to ask a keeper what's going on. I mean, you always want to find out from Tony Gwynn what's he looking at when it comes to hitting. You always want to find out about a home run hitter and what they're doing with their mechanics, with the perfect mechanics of a Nolan Ryan when he's throwing a fastball or something like that, instead of being Randy Johnson and being 8 foot 2 inches tall and just whipping it at people. You know. And
hitting birds,
blowing up seagulls during spring training. I know. But yeah, I would love to have that kind of a conversation. So then along those lines, when someone else retires, what kind of a conversation? If you could have at Scarves and Spiked the same kind of a conversation, taking Brad out of the discussion, who else on Atlanta United would you like to have a sit down with in those kinds of situations to analyze situation X? Who else would you like to have in that kind of a situation?
By far, Dax McCarty.
Yeah.
And that's for a few reasons. And I know it's an easy answer. He has obviously so much experience, but the midfield, being a soccer tactics nerd, always intrigues me, because I think most people agree your midfield is going to dictate the entire game. And as a midfielder, you have to impose your will on the other midfield to win the battle, which allows the rest of your team to do what they want to do. And, being a guy like Dax, a number 6, that is my vote always as the position that should get the captain's armband. It's not always, probable or likely, because, I love Jay to death, but you're not going to go give Jay Fortune the captain's armband right now. He's too young. He hasn't had the experience. So you have to give it where it belongs, right? And, but being a captain in that position, as he has been before, you see the game in kind of a different way. And I would just like to ask him some things like, some of the best teams that you played on defensively and offensively, what was it that made those teams work from your perspective? What did you do and what did your fellow midfielders do that made the rest of your team so successful on both sides of the ball? What do you look for in other midfielders that you're paired with, things like that, because I would just be very curious to see from a guy that has had both a lot of success and some really bad times in that position, what worked and what absolutely didn't work. What should you stay away from? So he would definitely be probably my vote.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I am also intrigued as to how Dax will embrace the next stage of his career, because I certainly could see him in front of cameras with red lights starting next season immediately in some manner, way, shape, form, or analysis, where since we have always known Dax to be a petit fleur, he is a wallflower, never one to have to speak his piece on anything, always holding back.
Yeah.
I want to see what the next stage is for him. And I'm glad that in as much as the season has not gone the way that he wanted it to, that he also got to have the moment for the final home match in Atlanta, and got the response that he got from the Atlanta United fans as he and his family were part of the lap that everybody got to take at the end of the match last time out.
Yeah, it was fun to see. I stayed up in the press box a little bit longer just to see it. They were grateful, and Dax and his family were grateful. And I think, the fans, they stayed around. They made some noise for him. It's not lost on everybody, what he's contributed to the game and to this league in general. And so it was fun to see. And I'm glad he, in the places that the team has gone recently, that he's gone up there and he's gotten his just desserts and everything from them as well.
The man is rocking chair,
he's done it. He's lived it. He's seen it all. Now it's time to go right off into the sunset, but he'll probably ride off into a press booth somewhere, I think.
Yeah, as he should.
I mean, though, I would love to see him go the coaching route as well. I just don't know that that's where his passion's at.
Yeah, I know. Could you imagine Dax as a coach?
Yes. And it would be amazing. Just him describing everything down to like the most minute detail would be really, really fun to listen to. But no, I think he ends up doing something where he's going to be able to speak to, a broader audience and analyze things and kind of give his opinion, and he'll do well.
No doubt. So what's going on with the scarves and spikes this evening in the midweek version of SNS?
Yeah, we're going to be really just diving all into the Red Bulls match. These international breaks, man, they're weird on the schedule, but we'll be talking about Red Bulls. We'll touch on kind of like what we did here, the math, and kind of what needs to happen, and a little bit about Orlando, and just kind of get everybody all squared away and settled. And we'll talk about the other sides of like now we're all going to be Cincinnati fans, right? We're all going to be fans of the teams playing against these other teams that we need to lose. So maybe looking in a little bit to what those teams can bring to the table to help out Atlanta on decision day.
Just do your damn job, right? Just do
Yeah,
what
please.
you just do your job.
Please.
Yes, please, baby, please, baby, 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 please. So Tyler got his full segment because I cut bait and made sure that links could just be active and everything. So as always, my friend, great to see you. Have a hell of a show tonight, and obviously, you know that whenever you want to crash, you can crash. It's not just for Wednesdays anymore. So
Yeah, I'm becoming a Friday guy now. Maybe I'll just start hopping on randomly on Friday. We'll see.
fine with me. That's what Friday free for alls are all about, especially when you get to hear the 5 o'clock whistle. All right,
Yeah.
save your voice, enjoy your coffee, and we'll catch up with you soon. Enjoy the show tonight.
Appreciate it. See you.
There goes Tyler, and Tyler's going to do his thing and become properly hydrated. A quick note: we were talking about how the schools in Western North Carolina have shifted locations when it comes to the colleges, and where folks are in Virginia, UNC Asheville, all of their sports have relocated to Charlotte and Kiowa and beyond, and UNC Charlotte, the Charlotte University. They are helping things out along the lines for UNC Asheville, and we got into all of that yesterday. Our friends at Hickory FC and the NPSL, I'm going to post the link here. They are having a fundraiser involving the an 828 shirt. And they obviously are not the only ones, but if you are so inclined and want to go through the Hickory FC route, go here. They posted, they shot me the link this morning while we were on the show. And so this is something that they have put together. And so if you are so inclined, then you can help out Western North Carolina Relief through our friends at Hickory FC. And it is all net proceeds going towards relief for Hurricane Helene. That's from Tom Dealey, the co-founder and managing director. He sent that note over this morning. And as I said, if you are so compelled and wish to help out in that direction, you certainly can. I went ahead and dove in because the boss knows that I don't have enough T-shirts or scarves or anything like that. And so they've got an 828 strong T-shirt at Hickory FC. It's really cool. I'm not a white T-shirt person because traditionally the second I wear a white T-shirt, then that means that I spill spaghetti sauce or something on it. But you can have it in different flavors, and so I tried one that's not quite as a spill magnet as a white T-shirt, and so I went ahead and dove in through our friends at Hickory FC. Net proceeds to help out Hurricane Helene relief and relief projects through our friends at Hickory FC and the NPSL. So there you go. Once again, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. I guess let me say hi to everybody who has jumped in. Morning, Brandon. Michael is either twitching or 280 charactering the show this morning, or both. And he is at Hilton Head. Hopefully, he's playing golf and doing enough for all of us. So, morning, Michael. Morning, Alex. Morning, Wiley. Morning, Pars. Let's see. And so that's everybody who's chimed in the Twitch pitch. And thanks to everybody who's hanging out with us, however you are doing so this morning. Large device or small, office, home, what have you. Obviously, all of our thoughts, once again, are with everyone who is, morning, David, who is still dealing with Helene and all of what she has done, in addition to what is going on currently with Milton. I mean, seriously. you don't sound all that intimidating if you're a Milton, but you want to come up with a different name. But right now, I think they're going to retire both Helene and Milton by the time we're done. 10 o'clock shortly thereafter. So that means we head to the busiest man in the Northeast. Catch up with Dylan Butler here on Wall Pass Wednesday. Dylan, what up, as the kids say?
What's the haps?
Wow, that's a good one. I've never heard of that one before, but I'll have to remember that one. So Varsity Media, let me check in with it because I have Varsity Media on my alerts. So whenever there's a Saturday football game or anything going on, there's Varsity Media. So how was the weekend for you being on the desk and Varsity Media-ing?
How was the desk? Was good.
Yeah.
They all kind of, well, I mean, busy, pretty busy Saturday, I think, with all the comings and goings and moving and shaking and all that is late season MLS soccer.
Yeah. So of course
Sunday was thankfully quieter on the desk.
Yeah.
I like to end my week with a 0-0 draw. Not a lot of extra lifting to be done there. And then Varsity Media-ing was, for me, quiet. Like we had games, I wasn't on them, but I do have a stretch of coming up this week, 5 games in 5 days.
Oh,
yeah. The plus is how many? I want to 2 football games. I would have seen 3 of the 4 teams already.
Okay.
So that helps, right? Like it's not a full from scratch chart that you're building.
That could be a pain in the what,
especially for football.
Yes.
And then 2 soccer matches. Of those 4 teams, I've seen 1 this year.
Okay.
So that's good as well. Not too bad. And then the other football game, we might be logistic issues that we might have to cancel out. So it might be 4-4 instead of 5-5.
Okay, because
I was to be busy.
Yeah, because when you mention something like that, traditionally the first thing that pops into my head is that when you mention logistic issues, I'm either thinking scissor lifts or having to call a match like Harry Carey and Steve Stone used to do on WGN, where they'd be out in the bleachers calling the game and relying on monitors and trying to call a game that way when you're not really calling a game. You're just kind of out there with the people.
What's the take? Is this it? Is that right? Like
yes.
The ear? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those. So I
So
didn't.
we might choose not to do that game.
Okay. All right. But trust me.
I am a man of the people, but I prefer not to be a broadcaster of the people.
Yes. Yeah. As long as unless security is there to aid you in that kind of a conversation.
Right.
All right. So weekend passed, and so all the momentum of the penultimate day in the MLS calendar, and so of course that means we get an international window, except for the 2 matches that are going to be the makeup matches from other competitions: Columbus, New England this weekend on Saturday, and Vancouver and LAFC on Sunday, both on the season pass. But from the weekend past, in and amongst all the chaos, what are some of your big thought points that have resonated with you from the weekend that was, as we get ready for international window that will be?
Yeah, holy smoke! I got to go back in
time. I'll run them down a conference at a time if you want.
Yeah, that'll help. I think just because it's been such a flurry between Wednesday and Saturday. Like we had a Shield winner last Wednesday, right?
Uh-huh.
Or was it Saturday? We had it on Wednesday.
Well, you had Messi and friends.
So.
Yeah. Messi and friends had Toronto at the end of it all. I mean, the midweek games were the ones where they had all the goals, basically. It's like you got all the offense out of your system in the midweek when you were here last time.
Yes.
Charlotte and Chicago played for 7. NYC and Cincinnati played for 5.
Although I will say this, funny, right, with Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to say it was funny with Miami and Toronto. So like they win the Shield. and Miami's like, listen, we don't care about the points record. Right now, we're about winning the cup. Like that's what is important to us. And they go out and they set themselves up to obviously contend for the points record against the club that has the points record
Mm-hmm.
on decision day. So that was interesting. That was one take. I do remember a certain Italian player for Toronto, not exactly going out on a strong point. You know,
Oh,
if his last actions as a actually that was that was the other game, right? That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. They're all together, but
yeah.
it was still his last actions as a Toronto player, possibly. You know,
Mm-hmm.
kicking the ball like a petulant child up in the air and getting sent off. So his next action apparently was just signing autographs from the luxury box
Of, of
during
course
the
it
Miami match.
Of
So
course it was. Good Lord. Um,
um,
yeah, I mean, I do want to discuss what happened in Chicago yesterday because that actually did break on the
yeah,
show. But let me get through the results first. You end up with uh, Atlanta splitting their time, beating Red Bulls. We talked about that in hour number one with Tyler. Charlotte beats Montreal, and this is the weekend action. Orlando beats Cincinnati, and that helps out Orlando. Cincinnati is now put in a position where next weekend doesn't matter to them one way or the other. Columbus and Philly played for 5 goals. I think that it normally takes 7 matches for Philly to be involved in a 5-goal match, but DC wins. Minnesota wins. LAFC puts a number on Kansas City, and we can have the Peter Vermes discussion once the season's over. All Caps beat Houston. Seattle beat Colorado. LA over Austin. We can talk about Josh Wolf. We haven't had the chance to talk about that. RSL over San Jose. NYC. Nashville was just kind of like, oh, we don't have anything to play for. Okay, cool. And that
that
show.
was looking like 10-0 at halftime for a little while.
It was. That was not pretty. And then Portland and Dallas wasn't pretty either for the opposite reason that no goals were being scored, but
Bad for Portland.
very bad for Portland. And especially for those of us who have Portland players on our fantasy teams. And that didn't go over well either. All right. So with everything now being what it is, getting ready for decision day, and obviously having this discussion again leading into to decision day next Wednesday, if you can hop on and join us then, setting up everything coming out of the penultimate weekend of the season. Now things are where they are. What sticks in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think missed opportunities front and forward there, right? With Portland, they're home. They're playing a Dallas team that's already been eliminated, right? Like, get the job done. Like, get yourself a better position. And that was what back-to-back draws for them. That was bad. I thought the LA Austin match was wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like the hockey season just started, but that was a hockey game that was being played. I'm anxious to see what the number on the suspension will be for that
Yes.
horrific tackle on Ricky Pooch, which apparently got Greg Vanney out of retirement because he was ready to go put on a Galaxy uniform and take him on.
That was in front of their bench, and,
Yes.
and we talked about it with Bart on Monday as a part of our reffing down here. And the tackle by Guilherme Biro, who is up for postseason award nominations, like newcomer of the year. I don't think that this will bode well for any votes, but literally Biro goes sliding in, lifts his legs, lifts them even higher. Puig tries to use some vert to go over the top. He still gets clipped, and it's in front of the LAG bench. And LAG, everybody from the LAG bench literally is ready to jump off and take on Biro like on a 13-on-1 battle royal. And you mentioned Vanney, and Vanney was about ready to jump out of the coach's box too. I mean,
And then Wolf and Wolf and his staff took exception to that, to Vanney's reaction to the tackle.
so Wolf takes exception to Vanney taking exception to Biro taking exception. Did I get that right?
In that order, yes.
So it was how many do you think? Let me phrase it this way with Biro. How many games do you think in addition? How many should it be in addition? Let me phrase it two separate ways for additional suspension.
I don't really have a distinction. I think it should be 4.
Okay.
I've seen the number of like 6 out there, 6 to 8.
Yeah.
Um, I still think it's yeah, I think 4,
Okay.
right? Like we've I'm trying to think what's like the last really bad challenge that we saw for multiple games.
Oh, was it? And I mean, this is one that just pops into my head involving a current Atlanta United player. Was it Derek Williams as LAG in Portland?
Maybe. LAG's all over these
Why, yes, they are.
flashpoints.
Yes.
But you know, from a soccer standpoint, right? Like Galaxy, listen, Galaxy should finish first, right? But LAFC has the game in hand. They're going to make it interesting.
Yes.
Good response from LA. Surely somebody there on the bench, on the technical staff, knew the LAFC result. So good for LA to go out and you know, do what Portland didn't do, really, right? And like get the job done. So that was important. And then yeah, like what the next morning is the end of the Josh Wolf era at Austin as they were eliminated by the Galaxy.
So, since you mentioned Josh Wolf, let's go there. When that occurred, I mean, we knew going in that once Gustavo Borrell took over as technical director, you knew that unless something really was going to go down for Josh, that you didn't think that Josh was Borrell's guy, and he's got somebody in mind. And so this was Josh's opportunity to prove, hey, I belong here. This is the gig that I should continue to have. But you always know with a new boss, you're having to impress the new boss all over again. My question and Jarrett's question in this is the timing of it all. If he wasn't your guy and you were struggling and weren't going to be in the discussion for the postseason, and once you're eliminated with a match to go, why not just let him finish out the year? Because you're talking one match. Am I turning into an old softy here? Just let the guy finish the season. The last home match is at Q2. He gets his victory lap. He gets his thank you. He gets to do this, and he gets to go on to the next chapter of his life. Instead, Gustavo Borrell sits there. It's like, okay, you're eliminated. You're out the door. Really, if you're eliminated, what does one match difference mean? Basically.
Yeah, so I thought about this as well, right? Like, and I thought about a little bit of the City Football Group sort of thought process, right?
Yeah.
Because Burrell came from that same engine, right, if you will. And like, I remembered back when Jason Christ was let go, they had already been NYCFC had already been eliminated. He did finish out though the season. Like there was like one game left, I want to say, at might have been Citi Field, but or Yankee Stadium, one or the other. But like he finished out that last game, and then almost immediately after was the announcement that he was let go. So yeah, in that sense, it was a different sort of thought process or idea.
Yeah.
But I also see the other side of it, right? Like you're giving this guy every opportunity to make the playoffs, right? He doesn't make the playoffs. That's the stated goal, right? Like when you put out your table of what we want to accomplish this year, that's on it.
The manifesto of Austin FC,
and that wasn't accomplished. And as such, you know, you failed. We're gonna go somewhere else, right? So, now the other part of it is, to me, an interesting one because City Football Group, in the case of Christ, moved very, very quickly. Like Christ was let go, and I want to say within a week, Patrick Vieira was hired.
Okay.
So, to your point, you do wonder, like these decisions aren't made on a Sunday morning in Austin, right? Like this has been contemplated, no doubt, from Burrell and other higher ups, but you don't do that without thinking about, well, who should we bring in, right? So I would not be surprised, mind you, I don't know who it is, but I wouldn't be surprised um, if an announcement happens shortly after the end of the season.
Could it be Vieira?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it could be Vieira. It could be Domi Torrent, right? Another guy who's been trying to get himself back in MLS. Yeah. I mean, I would put it in that pecking order. I think Vieira and Dome in that order. But I think Vieira for Burrell probably checks a lot of boxes, right? Like, it's in the same system, it's the same ethos, right? Like, a lot of it makes sense. Now, from a Patrick Vieira sense, is that a big enough metropolitan city for the Vieiras to feel comfortable living in? Where they've been in Milan, New York,
or are you
London?
Or are you at a point to where you just kind of want to be a part of a community, and you're not necessarily? Are you to that point where, yeah, I just want to be someplace, and I want to have my family, wander downtown and get some good Tex-Mex, and maybe go listen to some good live music, and just kind of be a part of a community? That is, I guess this might be more of a question for Patrick Vieira, but do you want to be on the marquee, or do you want to be part of something where you're not out there? And yes, you're a front man, but it's a different kind of vibe and a different kind of city. Keep Austin weird, keep Vieira employed. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Find out, I think. All right. Like, it'll be interesting.
Okay, because and Dome Torrent was someone that I had not thought of in this process, but with it being Borrell looping back into the city football group idea, seems like it makes entirely too much sense in this case, where you might be going back into your Rolodex if you're Borrell, and you're like, okay, Patrick Vieira, okay, I've got international minutes, I can handle him. I've got South minutes called Dome. I mean, it does check a lot of boxes to go back into those names into your Rolodex and see if they're interested in trying to build something.
Especially especially if they're managers who have coached under the way that you want this team to play, right? So
now that brings us to Chicago. And
yes.
First off, before we get into the actual idea of the name and the franchise, how are you specifically about a coach that has both titles when it comes to being in charge with an organization, of both being the head of soccer operations, major domo for, bringing in dudes, general manager, technical director, chief soccer officer, and head coach? How are you about the Bill Parcells idea of I'm in charge and I'm bringing, it's like I'm bringing the ingredients and I'm cooking the meal? How are you about somebody like that?
Yeah, I think that's I think Major League Soccer has matured and grown to a point that is outgrowing that idea. That was fine, I feel like, even 5 years ago. But how many of those do we have left, right? Vermees?
Yeah. Vermees.
Like, it didn't work with Arena. It's not really working with Vermees, if we're being honest.
Bradley.
Didn't work, right? So there's, of the current crop of technical directors or sporting director, whatever title you want to put on the GM head coach,
right?
It's not, I feel like we're beyond that. It's kind of like when you and I were kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had to go somewhere. We hopped in the station wagon. We were in the back. There were no seatbelts. We just sat in the back and we survived.
Yeah.
But we know better now, don't we? Like, there's a certain knowledge
Yes.
of how to do things that just because we did it that way doesn't mean that we should continue to do it that way.
So
I
so
feel
so
like
so jumping out of a tree and
Yeah.
landing in a pile of leaves when you are 12 or 13, no matter how tall the pile of leaves is, no matter how many branches you go up the tree, doing that when you're 45 is not necessarily the best idea.
Probably not, or maybe eating a full bag of Doritos or. Sorry, John, I wasn't trying to call you out there, buddy.
Actually, that's yeah. Well, I mean, the bags of Doritos are, and you know what? Anyway, the damn bags of Doritos have more air in them than they do Doritos now. Anyway,
Yeah, that's true.
they're selling you less Doritos, so there's less Doritos to eat. So if we wish to have the bag, there's less Doritos to eat in the first place. And by the way,
But you get my point.
taco flavored Doritos, not made in production enough, heavily underrated.
All right.
Had them
I
as a
was always a Cool Ranch guy myself, but
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with Cool Ranch, but when it used to be nacho cheese and it used to be taco flavor, and then they added Cool Ranch and pulled the taco flavor, and then they do the taco flavor now as a part of the limited runs during certain times of the year. So
point being though is that we are a more mature league,
yes,
and I think I don't think that dual role helps. I think by doing it like listen, when I was in college, I was the general manager of the radio station at St. John's,
hmm
and I was a managing editor of the newspaper. Was I pulled in two different directions all the time? Did one suffer while I gave more attention to the other? Of course it did. And granted, this is the same team, the same group, but are you building? One position thinks maybe about further along down the line in the future. The other is thinking about results right now to improve our place in the table. I don't know if the two ideas necessarily always align.
well, and if I remember the press release correctly, Berhalter is going to be in charge of the first team, the second team, and the academy. So this is sounding more and more like a CEO role where you really need to surround yourself with quality assistants that are going to be mentally with you and know what you want and can translate your thoughts into the on the field thing while you're focusing on Fire 2 and Fire Academy, in addition to bringing in players to represent what you want to be with Chicago Fire. This sounds like you need to be like 8 different people, but it's going to
Yeah,
be
I don't like. How are you going to be at like a Fire Academy match or meetings? Go to a Fire 2 training? Like I don't. I think he would be great for that role. Don't get me wrong, right? Like I just think you're right. I think that's a lot of hats for one person to wear.
and Frank Lopez has been given a title at the end of this regular season. It's like chief soccer dude or director of soccer or something or other. So Frank Lopez is getting the administrative gig once this season is over. When it comes to the hire itself, taking away the roles, taking away all of the different aspects of it and all of the tentacles that are attached to it, what do you think about the hire specifically of Berhalter to Chicago?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, I think we discussed this here that it always felt like he was going to be the guy. Even when you mentioned San Jose with him, I thought, they were just waiting to
That was Jarrett and wishful thinking, I think was what that was.
dot the I's and cross the T's with this one. So, yeah, I hope it works out. I think if he was, I think you're right. I think now, who gets hired to coach alongside him, right? That's going to be super important because he's going to have to delegate a lot. But I do like the idea of Greg Berhalter back in the club scene, back in MLS. Listen, so much is said obviously about Wilfred Nancy and what he's done with Columbus, but keep in mind, Berhalter, before he went to the U.S. men's national team, was doing a terrific job with Columbus, right? So he has the pedigree, he has the history, he knows the league. I think it's a smart move, but it's another one of these by Chicago, right? Like, you like the move, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and the but is a big one here, because you need multiple people for these jobs.
Yeah. And I like big butts, and I cannot lie. When you have vacancies like this, who would be in your mind, and like literally, I'm just spitballing this off the top of my head, who do you think would be good lieutenants for Berhalter on that staff? Maybe this is a question that you can hang on to and think about and put in the hopper for a week as we think about it. But are there such? Would there be good
you
lieutenants?
go back with Lucci again?
So you bring in Lucci as your lead assistant, and
like in a baseball, like your bench manager, right?
yeah. So it'd be like Bobby Cox, Leo Mazzoni kind of a thing, where it's like you trust that individual to do that aspect of this. But obviously, for someone like a Lucci, if he was to be brought in, it would be more responsibility, and it'd be like, have the discussion with him. It'd be like, bruh, here's the deal. I got a lot of ish on my plate. I need you to be me.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy responsibility, but you've got to have someone who's almost like a Berhalterian clone.
And he's worked alongside him, obviously, before.
Yeah. So we'll mark this and sit there and think about the lieutenant.
Do you go Wolf as well?
See, and I think that the key in this, because if you are going to be spending a lot of time bringing in talent, and then you're looking at Fire 2, and you're looking at Fire Academy, and Fire 2 are in the playoffs and Next Pro, so you're going to be able to see what's going on there out of the blocks. You're going to need somebody or somebodies as your lieutenants who know Major League Soccer, know the ins and outs, know the travels, know the pressures, know all of these kinds of things. And so do Lucci and or Josh Wolf go in to be lieutenants in a situation where there is a heightened expectation, but you're not the guy? The guy is managing on a bunch of different levels, but you get to be a guy for the guy and take care of things that you've known how to do in the past. I think this is a key responsibility that you're going to have to look at here. And Joe Mansueto is going to have to spend a lot more money than I think he might realize. A, you're bringing in Berhalter. B, you're going to have to bring in one lieutenant, if not two, to be Greg Berhalter on a first-team basis and then set up the infrastructure that he wants. Joe Mansueto has not been afraid to spend money on talent. See, not so Big Shaq, but it's got to be the right talent, because Xherdan Shaqiri worked a little bit, but really didn't. And you've got to figure out what you want to do philosophically. Mansueto has been shown that he's not afraid to spend money. And now this time it's going to have to be on the administrative side, I think, to back up what you want to do on the field. So it's going to have to be in two places, not just one.
Yeah, you need some, for lack of a better term, some sort of like a dream team there, right? Like where
I think you're right.
But I think Lucci, right off the bat, I think would be a perfect person for that, right? Like, he can do the job he knows to do without the pressure that comes with being the head coach.
I like that. So we're going to bookmark this conversation. What is going on with you the remainder of the week? Where are folks going to be looking and watching? Are you on the desk for these games on Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday, yes. Sunday, no.
Okay. So you get the Eastern Conference game, the Eastern Conference makeup game that sets up everything coming up on
and the U.S. men's national team game.
Oh yes, that is correct. Yes.
A certain era beginning there.
Yes, and so we will discuss that when you come back next time as to everything. All right, so lay out everything, what's going on in the Dylan Butlerian universe and Butlerian universe.
Yeah, I mean, Saturday, MLS Saturday. I will be producing Hofstra men and women's soccer broadcasts this weekend.
Oh,
It's another one of my 17 jobs I have.
You only got the 17 job, man. What a motto.
And then it's prepping for 4 to 5 games next week.
Well, as always, my friend, it's great when we can grab you with everything else that's going on with the 17 jobs and being blessed and being a Yankee fan and making sure that folks end up making it to school on time. And then
Nervous with the Yankee fan part, but
yeah, I know. Oh, what's the mug this morning, by the way?
yeah, no, we're going full Yankees today.
Okay, so I figured. Okay, so he's being topical. Dylan, my friend, it's great to catch up with you. Great to see you. May everything stick to the cards and go out into the ether, and may all the broadcasts be fantastic. And we will catch up with you next week, my friend.
Cheers.
There he goes. He's going to enjoy his Yankee mug, and there he goes. He's got his sip down. And it's probably like cup of coffee number 8. Morning 4 card. And so and since, like I said, since I came on 6 minutes late because I'm an idiot, more like 7. So obviously we're going past the 11:05 deadline here because there's news to talk about, there's stuff to talk about across the board. One of the things that we didn't get to discuss and have not had the chance to discuss about yet came up before we came on the air this morning, and we knew, that when we saw Jurgen Klopp in like suits and things and just kind of smiling, that he looked like everything was kind of cool and breezy for him now that he was no longer in charge at Liverpool. He's like, give me a year, then I'll figure it out. No, I'm not going to take this national team gig. Now we know why, and it wasn't even a year. Jurgen Klopp, and so Mike Gordon wanted same level as a corporate leader. And so this is from Simon Hughes as of about an hour ago. Now, Jurgen Klopp has a new role as Red Bull's global head of soccer. Global head of soccer, Omar Garrick, James Pierce et al., set to start his new position New Year's Day. So, I mean, that's close to what? So that's 6 months. Not quite a year, but 6 months. Klopp will oversee Red Bull's international football network, will not be involved in the day-to-day operations of Red Bull clubs, but will provide strategic guidance. Focus will be on supporting individual sporting directors alongside global scouting and the development of coaches. Quote in the press release, skipping paragraph 1. By joining Red Bull at a global level, I want to develop, improve, and support the incredible football talent that we have at our disposal. There are many ways that we can do this, from using the elite knowledge and experience that Red Bull possesses to learning from other sports and other industries. Together, we can discover what is possible. I see my role primarily as a mentor for the coaches and management of the Red Bull clubs, but ultimately, I am one part of an organization that is unique, innovative, and forward-looking. As I said, this could not excite me more, end quote. Oliver Mintzlaff, who ain't a fan of Major League Soccer, and Oliver Mintzlaff needs to kind of sit down. We're very proud of this outstanding and certainly the strongest signing in Red Bull soccer history. In his role as head of soccer, he will be a game changer for our involvement in international soccer and its continued development. We're hoping for valuable and decisive impulses in key areas to make the clubs even better, both collectively and individually. So, okay. So then my thought, sir, would be perhaps, I don't know, maybe to have the on-field philosophy be more like the rock and roll soccer that we got to experience under Jurgen Klopp, instead of the poking, prodding, plotting, finger pointing, chippy, goading, balls got cooties style. Hashtag ball got cooties. That's what we're kind of staring at right now, and hopefully Jurgen Klopp can change that. I do wonder out loud, and this is for Red Bullsian fans, Red Bulls New York specifically. I'm wondering / hoping that for fans of Red Bulls that they will be treated more than just as a line on a balance sheet. Because, I mean, we went through the salary figures attached to Red Bulls right now. And if you were to compare them with everybody else, I want to say there might be 5 teams in Major League Soccer that have lower salary cap numbers than Red Bulls. There weren't a whole lot of folks that were making more than 7 figures. You had a great group of them that were making mid 6, and you had the rookies. We've seen what Red Bulls 2 can be like in MLS Next Pro. We got to get into that this morning, because we had the Pick Your Opponent shows yesterday. Max Bretos hosting those on the YouTubes. Our buddy Jeff Lorenowitz was there to announce the selection of FC Cincinnati 2 in the Eastern Conference show. But with what Oliver Mintzlaff has said about what Jurgen Klopp is supposed to do and what their anticipation level is of who he can be to their process, I'm wondering if you see visually a SEA change, if you see a sea change in what Red Bulls is, who they are, and what they hope to be. And maybe Jurgen Klopp can help make Red Bulls New York more competitive in Major League Soccer than apparently they are. And that Major League Soccer can be more competitive across the board, and that Red Bulls can make them all better. Sure. Now, like I said, this is me holding my breath on Oliver Mintzlaff and Red Bulls New York, sadly. But so Jurgen Klopp now has a new gig. It'll be a 6-month layoff, but he'll start January 1st. I am intrigued because I want to see what it will be for Jurgen Klopp. Is this going to be something that will be gradual and folks are just going to have to understand that there's going to be some tough transition time in trying to transform what Red Bulls is on the field to what he wants it to be on the field and off? So we'll see. So that is that was the larger piece of news this morning that came across as Jurgen Klopp is now employed 6 months. But hey, give him a year, 6 months. You figured that Klopp might get a little antsy and want to come up with his next challenge, and that's going to be the head of globalness for Red Bulls as an organization when it comes to Red Bull soccer. So color me intrigued. Looking forward to seeing what is up with that. So as I sit here and I look at the other things, like I said, there's other things. So, all right, we'll talk about Red Bulls. Since I mentioned Red Bulls too, I do have a story about Simone Inzaghi from our friends at Reuters, and we'll get into that this morning. MLS Next Pro had their pick and choose yesterday for the playoffs, and we'll get into what it is and what happened and the selections and the scheduling and everything. If you missed it, we have an interview up. Yesterday, we had Steve Cook on the show. And it was really cool to pick Steve's brain for about 20 minutes about Atlanta United 2, what he saw, how he sees, and how Atlanta United sees Atlanta United 2 as a part of the collective, what we got to see this past season from the twos, and all of the growth and the placement and the growth of the players and being a part of first teams, getting quality first team minutes, all these kinds of things. So if you missed that conversation, it's up on the network. You can go to Spreaker. That's our home app activity. Speaker with an R in the middle, Spreaker.com. Do a search for Soccer Down Here. Download the Spreaker app. Earmark SDH. You get everything off the SDH network, and you can find out what we're doing on a daily basis. Reminder that later today we're going to catch up with some friends that are now a part of the expansion in the NPSL. That'll be up later this afternoon as well. Tomorrow it is going to be open lines hour number 1. Then it'll be Nino and Nico. It'll be the power hour to go through everything in hour number 2. And then we'll have our weekly programming come out with the USL Championship, League One, and MLS Next Pro, getting you ready for the playoffs. And Friday, Jason should be joining us in the off week. We'll find out what's on his mind and what he saw this past weekend, what he's seeing in Major League Soccer in general. We'll talk college soccer too, because Jason and Maddie and Jess and Luke Winstall and all of the SDHers, Gabe Schrei, they've all been going on and finding out what's going on in the college game. I want to get into that as well, taking it a level at a time, spending some time with Oglethorpe and Emory like we have at the SDH Network. Mercer has been Jason and Jess's, Baileywick and Maddie. And so we'll get into the college game. We'll get into the pro game, get updates there across the board. And then we will also catch up with Chris Martinovich at Ozark United, what used to be USL Northwest Arkansas. They had their big brand reveal last week. And so we're going to catch up with Chris Friday afternoon. We're going to post that to the network Friday afternoon. So you'll find out in that 1v1 what it's like to be Ozark United instead of USL NWA. So it's going to be a bunch of stuff going on all over the place. A couple of 1v1s and our episodics that have been thrown into the mix. So that is where we are. The way that it went in MLS Next Pro yesterday, what you do, they called it PYO, pick your opponent. And the Eastern Conference went at 2 o'clock and the Western Conference went at 3 o'clock. Each of the top seeds, the first 3 seeds, got to pick their opponent. The 4 seed kind of got left with what they were left with. In the East, it was in order: FC Cincinnati 2, Philadelphia Union 2, and Messi and Friends 2, the Baby Herons. That was 1, 2, 3. Then it's Chicago Fire 2, Orlando City B, NYCFC 2, Crew 2, and Crown Legacy. I initially thought that the East might be a little bit more chaotic than the West. Not the case. There was a little bit of chaos, but not as much as I thought. Jeff Lorenowitz, our buddy up at FC Cincinnati, he was there to pick for FC Cincinnati 2, and the Lion Cubs ended up picking Crown Legacy. And so that's going to be on the 20th. So in 11 days' time, and so when is the 20th? That's on Sunday. So Sunday the 20th, you're going to have the beginning of all the playoffs. So next week, we'll kind of get into Next Pro playoffs as well. So it's FC Cincinnati 2, hosting Crown Legacy. Philadelphia Union 2 then picked the 6th seed, NYCFC 2, and they admitted that they wanted to not travel a whole lot when it came to their playoffs. So Union 2 picked NYCFC 2. Then the 3, the Baby Herons, ended up picking Crew 2, which might be a mistake. I'm just saying. So that left Chicago Fire 2 and OCB. So it's 1 versus 8, 2 versus 6, 3 versus 7, and 4 versus 5. So there was one switch, and it was only one slot. Baby Herons might be in for a bit more than they can chew in the quarterfinals, going up against Crew 2. But color me intrigued. I thought that maybe OCB might be a better matchup for Messi and Friends 2, but we'll see. Western Conference, you had a little bit of chaos, and I thought that this one was going to be more chalk. So once again, me and picking things and not picking things. North Texas picked Vancouver. So Vancouver Whitecaps 2, the 7 instead of the 8 in Dynamo Dose. You end up with 1 and 7. St. Louis City SC2 picks LAFC. So the 2 picks the 5. The Town, which used to be LA Galaxy 2, Los Dos. The Town ended up picking the 8th seed in Dynamo, and that left the 4 and the 6 for Ventura County and for Tacoma Defiance. So it's 1 versus 7, 2 versus 5, 3 versus 8, and 4 versus 6. So it was slightly more chaotic in the MLS Next Pro playoffs. All those quarterfinals, once again, set to be played on October 20 on the Sunday. So it's going to be literally 3, 5, 2 at 7 o'clock in the East. Then in the West, it's going to be 3, 6, 8:30, and 10. So next Sunday, the 20th, is going to be chaos when it comes to MLS Next Pro. And Four-Card thinks that picking playoff opponents is just silly and unnecessary drama. I mean, I get trying to be a little different. And, because you earn the idea of picking who you want. So if you're the 1, I mean, traditionally, and there have been times in MLS Next Pro, don't get me wrong, there have been times where picking your opponent has not ended up well. And I think that this might be another one of those times. Like I said, looking at the Eastern Conference, you decided to pick Crew 2 as the 3 instead of picking OCB. I would have picked OCB instead of Columbus Crew 2. You don't want that. You don't want Columbus Crew 2. But, I mean, that's going to be an intriguing one for me in the Eastern Conference. Crown Legacy has proven itself to be a pain in the butt. Do they send down, do they send down Ajimong or anybody like that on the 20th? What do they do when it comes to the playoffs and any first teamers or anybody on a first team contract? Who drifts down to take spots and get you ready in the postseason? I think that North Texas pretty much is going to be all squared away in the West. I think it's going to be fairly chalkish. I think it's going to be the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 that'll make their way out in the Western Conference. And so as a result, I don't think it mattered who you picked. I think it's going to be North Texas and everybody else in the Western Conference. In the East, I could see some issues. 4 and the 5, I could see it going either way, but if I had a choice, I'd probably pick OCB over Chicago. So that to me would mean it would be the 5, the 3, or the 7, and my gut tells me it's going to be the 7. Then Philadelphia and FC Cincinnati 2 and Crown Legacy. I mean, it just depends on what Crown Legacy ends up with, but I could see that one being a problem for FC Cincinnati 2 in the Eastern Conference. So chalk in the West for me, chaos in the East for me, and all that's going to happen in 11 days' time. So it'll be really cool to see how all of it evolves in MLS Next Pro. But as we get closer and closer, we'll talk more and more about MLS Next Pro and playoffs and such. Everything. Yesterday, when it came to activity in the Premier League, we mentioned what's going on with, sorry, my ear itches, Manchester City and the victorious appeal that they had. Shiki Begiristan is going to leave at the end of the year, I believe. He was wrapping up his time as part of the front office cogs for City Football Group. It apparently had been plotted, according to Ben Jacobs, that Begiristan was going to be there. He's 60, and he was thinking, okay, maybe it's time to go. So Shiki Begiristan, he's probably going to make a boatload of money being a consultant for whomever, or maybe he'll be something of a consultant for City Football Group and just kind of be a wandering minstrel. But Shiki Begiristan is going to be leaving his role at Manchester City, and we'll see how they want to fill that role. But going back to Dylan's conversation, Austin, keep an eye on Vieira and keep an eye on Domi Torron. The City Football Group, Rodolfo Borrell footprint may not go very far. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Shiki Begiristan is leaving his time at Manchester City. And so it will be interesting to see where CFG goes from there. The news from Reuters that I wanted to talk about came before the show broke this morning. And next time that Nick is on, we need to have the discussion about this. Italian police questioned Inter Milan manager Simone Inzaghi as a part of a criminal investigation on links between the club's hardline ultras and organized crime groups. 2 sources with knowledge of the matter said. This is from our friends at Reuters. Inzaghi is not under investigation. Police questioned him as a witness. Last week, Italian police arrested 19 high-profile ultras tied to Inter Milan and AC Milan, many of whom are suspected to have links with the 'Ndrangheta, Europe's top mafia group originating from the Calabria region, in a 568-page arrest warrant. 568 pages. What the hell? When's the last time any kind of a 568-page arrest warrant? That's ridiculous. That's like 3 inches. Because when I've written books and I've had, how long was that? Because I've got my manuscript to one of my books over here, and literally it was like 2 inches thick. That was single spaced and what have you. 568 pages. That's like 4 inches. Prosecutors gave details of how senior Inter ultra Marco Ferdico telephoned Inzaghi shortly before the 23 Champions League final to ask him to lobby club directors to allocate more tickets to the fan group. Prosecutors said the two teams are offended parties in the case, but had to review their dealings with the fans, saying modifications of their business structure were needed to prevent a recurrence of the alleged criminal infiltration. Inter Milan had no comment on Wednesday. The club chairman, Giuseppe Marotta, said the club was cooperating with authorities. So you've got that news this morning. So keep an eye on all of that. Going through gossip, rumor, innuendo, what to watch, how to watch it, where to watch it, all those kinds of things, and all the other news that's going out there. Remember that Manchester City is mad at the Premier League, and they're like, nah, bro, you didn't win. But you might not have won the case, and you can say what you're going to say, but you didn't win. And so now apparently there's a lot of upheaval. And in the Telegraph this morning, once again, more than one article, more than one author to an article, Wallace and Morgan. Manchester City, speaking of Manchester City this morning, Manchester City have been accused by rivals of trying to run the Premier League themselves. After they dismissed the league's view on the verdict, they're just like, on the tribunal between the two, and advised clubs to contact them rather than the league executive. If you want the truth, just call us. You don't have to call the league office. Just call us. In an email sent by the club to all 19 rivals, City dismissed the Premier League summary of the tribunal findings, claimed that the entirety of the league's associated party transaction rules were now obsolete, and invited other clubs to speak to them directly. Hey, if you want to know how to handle the situation, you want to know how to handle the Premier League, you want to know how to handle APT, just give us a call. We got it. We got it all figured out. You want to consult? Just talk to us. The letter has caused consternation among clubs who feel that City are now explicitly ignoring the leadership of the Premier League and seeking to have clubs bypass them. One source told Telegraph that the situation was unprecedented and that City were now in open revolt. In the email, City's general counsel Simon Cliff accused the Premier League of, quote, misleading, end quote, clubs with inaccuracies in its summary of the arbitration tribunal finding that ruled last month on City's challenge to APT rules critical to financial controls. Cliff told the clubs to ignore the advice from the Premier League's counsel and to assume that all APT rules are now invalid. Cliff wrote, I guess they were Cliff's notes. Too easy. Quote, Manchester City Football Club's position is that this means that all of the APT rules are void and have been since 2021. He said clubs should reject any, quote, knee-jerk reaction from the Premier League to amend the APT rules, added that City would be happy to assist. There you go. City would be happy to assist with any inquiries from the 19 fellow members. It's like, y'all, if y'all want to know how to handle APT in the Premier League, yeah, just give us a call. Yeah, just give us a call. We got you covered. Here's what we did. That doesn't lend itself to any kind of raised eyebrow or anything. If Manchester City, let's walk through this for a second. If Manchester City feels it's like, just call us. What you're doing is you're stacking evidence and business practices in your direction as opposed to following the rules of the Premier League. Premier League has a set of rules of engagement. You win your case against the Premier League. So then what you feel compelled to do in that case is going forward is, here's what you do. You sit there. It's like, no, here's how we handled it with the Premier League. What you're doing is you're giving the chance to give all of the clubs the chance to twist the rules away from the Premier League and their rules of engagement and lean them more in your direction. See, hey, they're doing it too. They're doing it. You see what they're doing? They asked us for advice. We gave it to them. So you end up following Manchester City's rules of engagement instead of the Premier League's rules of engagement. Am I wrong? Let me know. That's just how I'm interpreting it. Because come on, just tell you what, you got a question, call us. What you're doing is you're putting the Premier League away from the discussion. It's like, yeah, you don't have to talk to them. We got them in court. So if you want to know how we did things, just give us a call. You're steering things in your direction when it comes to the rules of engagement against the Premier League. So in case anything else happens down the line, hey, all these clubs, we're all doing the same thing here. It's not the Premier League was proven in court to have things go against them in this, and this. All these clubs, they asked us for advice. We gave it to them. And so now we're following the rules as specified in court. Just saying. The email was met with disbelief at many clubs who have already discussed with the Premier League the advice of its counsel, Kevin Plum. The view of Plum and his chief executive, Richard Masters, as outlined to clubs when the judgment was published, is that while APT rules require some amendments, the tribunal found its basic legal structure to be sound. Yeah, this doesn't have billable hours attached to it or anything. Telegraph understands that Cliff caused considerable surprise among other executives at the shareholders meeting last week when he raised the issue of the Premier League's huge spending on legal costs. Given the league has had to fight 2 legal cases with City, it was, quote, a tumbleweed moment. The Premier League has disclosed legal costs of £45 million on governance cases against City, Chelsea, Everton, Forest, and Leicester. So City, in the 175-page finding, which is 1/3 the length of the case involving the Ultras and Milan, City got significant victories in their hearing after making around 20 claims to the league. So, yeah, there's some convincing going on at the highest, toppest levels. Oh, yeah. And Arsenal and Liverpool apparently are going to escape liability for the huge interest on owners' loans after the legal case. Because remember what we were discussing about all of the internal loans to your ownership? There were 6 teams that were north of 9 figures when it came to the figures of loans that are linked back to your ownership group. So you got folks that are going to be dodging that bullet. Wayne Rooney, by the way, manager at Plymouth Argyle, for those that might have lost track of where he is charged with 3 counts of misconduct after a red card. He admits his dismissal was deserved after an emotional outburst following an equalizer by Blackburn. Mike McGrath at the Telegraph, charged with 3 counts of misconduct, risked further punishment from the FA after being sent off for the first time as manager after an incident he admits boiled over. Plymouth manager was dismissed at the weekend when Blackburn equalized. Rooney was upset over an incident in the build-up where he felt a foul had not been spotted by the ref. He'll get a 1-match touchline ban for the red, but the charge could lead to heavier punishment. So welcome to the land of being a manager, Wayne Rooney. So Wayne Rooney is now a part of the discussion and the process. Now that he is, you sir are no longer with zeros on the board. You now you and the FA, y'all are talking. Y'all are talking now. Forecard thinks that an EPL salary cap is inevitable. But then let me ask you this in return. If there is a salary cap, legitimately, how many folks will be interested in something like that, especially at the top of the table? I don't think you're going to have a lot of teams that are going to be interested in that kind of a salary cap. The folks in the mid-table, the folks at the lower end of the table, I'm sure they would. But if you're going to have a cap, you better have a floor too. Yesterday, apparently, Eric Ten Hag survived getting sacked after the United board held a 6-hour meeting, twice as long as a 3-hour tour. So Ten Hag survives the weekend. Alisson's going to miss at least 7 matches for Liverpool with a hamstring injury. So Salman Kelleher, legitimately, he was looking for a place to start. He was looking for a place to start. And now this looks like that might be the place to start for Salman Kelleher, who was looking for an out. Did you see this from the Times? Yeah, everyone outside of the top 6 will won it. 4-card, absolutely true. And maybe some of the ones who are outside the top 6, like Chelsea. Actually, real quick, let's get into that. Let's do the quick dime store analysis of the Premier League and who might want the salary cap and who won't. All right, so yes, accept all cookies. Blah blah blah. All right, so I don't want the signed shirt giveaway from Cole Palmer. All right, so tables. Liverpool won't. City won't. Arsenal won't. Chelsea won't. Newcastle won't because of the owners. Spurs won't. 6. United won't. 7. So we're close. So 7. Yeah, so probably 7 or 8. Just depending on who the owner is. So yeah, 4-card, I think you're close. Tom Allnut at the Times. Valencia fans are being held in Singapore for criticizing the club's owner. Dani Cuesta and partner Maria Saez were stopped at the airport after Cuesta posted photos of himself protesting against the Singaporeans' ownership of the club. On their honeymoon. Stopped at the international airport Friday after Cuesta posted photos of himself protesting. Valencia confirmed on Tuesday that the club and La Liga have contacted the Spanish embassy in Singapore in the hope the incident will have the best and quickest outcome. The Spanish club did not state their support for the couple, but added the embassy, quote, has assured us that both of them are being advised and assisted in everything that may be necessary in order for the events to be resolved as soon as possible. In one of the photos posted last week, Cuesta is holding a banner which reads Lim Go Home, standing outside what he thought was a hotel owned by Lim, but which was instead an apartment block where the businessman has a home. Cuesta also posted a video on social media of himself placing a sticker on a wall outside the property, captioned his post, Hotel Abelia, owner Peter Lim, very ugly indeed. El Confidencial, the Spanish newspaper, says the couple were blocked at the airport from flying to Bali and had their passports removed, taken back to the hotel where they've since been paying for the extra night's accommodations. Libertad VCF came out with a statement expressing solidarity for fans who've been detained. The mayor of Valencia confirmed that she has contacted the Spanish embassy, still waiting. Lim took over Valencia in 2014, but has become immensely unpopular among fans who blame his ownership for the dramatic decline, 18th in the Liga, winning only one of their first 9. So, lesson learned there, hopefully. So that's the Guardian. That's the Times. Getting into the Guardian, seeing if there's anything else that has advanced their way. Mentioned Jurgen Klopp. Mentioned what's going on with the Begiristan, and also let's see. Oh, did you see this? This might have been, if I'd figured out how to dial up the show early enough, this might have been opening kickoff. Ipswich Town's Axel Tuanzebe faces a layoff after a freak accident while washing up. Faces a spell on the sidelines after an accident put him at risk of losing a thumb. Missed the loss at West Ham on Saturday with an unspecified hand injury that his manager Kieran McKenna revealed had required surgery. It has since emerged, according to The Guardian, that the right back was badly injured in a domestic incident in which his hand was lacerated while washing up. The incident occurred when a glass smashed, one of the shards causing a deep cut to his hand, leading to concerns his thumb may not be saved. Swift medical response operation, quick return to action appears unlikely. McKenna says Tuanzebe will be out for a while, in quotation marks, remaining unavailable for selection beyond the international break. Started this season impressively. Got praise from Fabian Hertzler after last month's goalless draw. Also a setback to the international career for Tuanzebe, won his first 3 caps for the Democratic Republic of Congo since June, but forced to withdraw from this month's AFCON match against Tanzania. So crazy involving Axel Tuanzebe. And let's see. I think that's it for now. Let's get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch, how to watch it. Okay. Obviously, a lot of college soccer going on. We'll get into that. Also, your gossip and rumor for the day. Bournemouth's Antoine Semenyo is getting interest from Liverpool, Newcastle United, and Spurs after the Ghanaian attacker's impressive start to the season. Al Nassr confident of signing Kevin De Bruyne when his contract expires at the end of the season. Trent Alexander-Arnold could be convinced to run down his contract at Anfield to join Real Madrid on a free to join Jude Bellingham. 3-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Real Madrid stepping up their interest in Alexander-Arnold. Liverpool hopeful they can convince him to stay. Liverpool have identified Eintracht Frankfurt's Omar Marmoush and Borussia Dortmund attacker Karim Adeyemi as replacements for Mo Salah. That's from Florian Plettenberg. Manchester United's hopes of signing Colombia midfielder Richard Rios have improved. Palmeiras willing to consider selling for €20 million in January. Arsenal, Manchester United tracking Wigan's keeper Sam Tickle as they look to bolster their goalkeeping options. Southampton's hierarchy set to meet to discuss Russell Martin's future at the club. Considering they're dead blank and last, I could see why. PSG's Randall Colomwani could leave in January, but the Ligue 1 champs want at least €70 million. Bayer Leverkusen's Florian Wirtz keen to join Bayern Munich next summer. Newcastle continuing to monitor Jonathan David as a potential January transfer target. Hugo Viana, director of football at Sporting in Portugal, Manchester City's favored candidate to replace the outgoing Shiki Begiristain for the same role for the Premier League champs. That is from Fabrizio Romano, so hang on to that piece of information going forward. Now, soccer on the tube, where to watch, how to watch it, all those kinds of things. As we always talk about the college game, plenty. Not a whole lot of activity going on in the pro matches. Women's Champions League on DAZN USA at 1:45, Lyon and Benfica, Chelsea and Ajax at 4. Argentine's Copa de la Liga at 8:30, Lanús and Union Santa Fe. That is on Paramount Plus. Once again, a lot of college action going on, so consult your favorite providers when it comes to what to watch in the college game, and you get to see what else is going on there. Once again, let me break down what's going on for the rest of the week. We're going to have some 1v1s available. Oh, and thanks to our friends at Glance LED here. Short version. If I get the bigger version, it's going to have to go up top so you guys can see it, but it would have to be resting in the train track because right now, that's all that the studio can handle. Glance LED gives you all the news info and stuff, and so you'll look off my shoulder sometimes. You'll see all the news that's going on and all the scores that are going on as they go. Once again, tomorrow it is Nino and Nico in the Power Hour at 10 o'clock, and we'll get you set up for everything else on a Thursday in hour number 1. And also later today, we'll catch up with some folks that are getting franchises started in the NPSL, and we'll have that one posted for you later this afternoon as well. Then on Friday, hopefully our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring can join us. Jason hopefully can join us. We'll talk about everything from college to pro and all points in between. Then also on Friday, we're going to catch up with Chris Martinovich, one of the owners for Ozark United, which used to be USL NWA, and we will catch up with them, and that'll be taped to the network. News out of Corpus Christi, Texas, is that USL League One and Corpus Christi and their ownership group have agreed to see what's going on there, and they're building a 5,000-seat modular facility in Corpus Christi, Texas. It's going to be part of a larger entertainment area, and you'll get to go and hang out there. But it looks like League One and Corpus Christi, Texas have agreed to terms on a new franchise, and that will help out in the middle of the country almost as a breaking point for folks, and it'll be the Ben's first professional outlet as any kind of sports franchise. So congrats to what's going on in Corpus Christi, Texas, and what is going on there as well as USL League One. Once again, later on in the week, you'll have your USL Championship programming. You'll have your USL League One programming. We'll go over what happened in the selections for Pick Your Opponent, for activity in MLS Next Pro, and we'll break all of that down as we go, period. Game day for Georgia State. Georgia State's soccer, they are going at it later this afternoon, actually tonight in Harrisonburg, Virginia on the Plus, taking on James Madison. So if you are near the Plus tonight, it is Georgia State women in the Fun Belt taking on James Madison in Harrisonburg, and that one is at That one is also at 7 o'clock on the Plus as well. So that is it for today. I profoundly apologize for being an idiot when it comes to trying to set up things that you thought you could set up when it came to live. And so we'll be back at it again tomorrow. But once again, thanks to Dylan, thanks to Tyler, and thanks to you for dropping by. We'll be back at it in a little less than 22 to break down everything that has happened today, get you ready for what's going on tomorrow, all the news of the day here on at the SDH Network. So for everybody here at SDH, thanks to all of you folks for joining us, as you always do. Back at it again, 9:05 Eastern, if I can figure out how to navigate rooms. So it's that time. God. Yeah, John's a moron. What else is new? Time to roll the close and end it, and so we'll be back at it again tomorrow morning. Play it safe, everybody. Enjoy the games. Thanks for being a part of the morning show here on the SDH Network.